Have you reached your full potential? Have all of your dreams come true? If you haven't yet figured out how to get everything out of life, then this is for you. I've got a methodology based on 6 years of neuroscience research that's so simple, even a caveman could do it. Just checking. Let me explain. 2 million years ago, our caveman ancestors reprogrammed the fear center of our brain, called the amygdala, to be an early warning system for danger. See, the amygdala handles the fight or flight response. It's wired into our DNA. The amygdala is why we want to be right. The amygdala causes us to judge other people. The amygdala is the root of all intolerance. You see, when someone's different, that creates uncertainty. Are they friend or are they foe? We don't know. That uncertainty drives a need to feel safe, a need to be certain, which holds us back from our full potential. It's fear that holds the key to our potential. Greatness requires using fear as fuel. You're about to learn 3 ways to use fear as a super high performance fuel. But before we do that, you've got to learn a little neuroscience. Now, I'm probably the only one in the room who geeks out on this type of stuff. So before it gets all big brain on you, I'll give you a nerd alert. See, the brain is a prediction engine. We try to forecast the outcome of every moment. If you walked into a dark room and you flipped a switch, your brain's going to estimate that there's a 95% chance the light will come on and a 5% chance it doesn't come on. If it doesn't come on, your brain further predicts there's an 88% chance the bulb's burnt out and a 12% chance that the circuit breaker's blown. Those predictions come from all your past experiences stored in this massive hard drive called the subconscious mind. Nerd alert. Neuroscientists call all your past experiences your prior beliefs. Now, if you were to go up to that same socket and unscrew it, and 50 baby snakes came slithering out on top of you, you'd freak out, because that is unlikely to be in one of your prior beliefs. That creates uncertainty. And uncertainty to our caveman ancestors, that often resulted in death. So what would they do? They'd get that early warning signal and they'd fly back to their cave where they knew they felt safe. Well, we don't have caves anymore, but we do have couches and we do have offices. Oh, sure, you might have a really cool man cave or she shed, but that's not what I'm talking about. The couch is the new cave. It's where we go to feel safe. It's where we go to miss out on life's greatest opportunities. You see, we default to that defense. At the first sign of uncertainty, we feel disempowered. And that causes us to shut out beliefs and ideas that we don't understand because they're scary. And instinctively, that's what we want to do. But we need to do just the opposite. We need to open up and welcome those things in. Why do we need to find more fear? Because every one of your dreams is on the other side of fear. The Garden of Eden is a long way from this dark, dank cave, and you've got to cross this vast, wild jungle to get there. You can't possibly know what'll happen on that long, scary trek. So as soon as you take that step out from the cave into the jungle, that fear center explodes in cautionary sounds. Warning, warning! And you feel disempowered. You've felt the signs before, probably today, certainly this week. You feel butterflies, your jaw tightens, your heart rate quickens. Nerd alert. That's called an amygdala hijacking. Your physiology is changing for better fight or flight. The amygdala is literally making you stronger, making you smarter. And then it's warning you you're in danger, so you better run back to the cave. Reacting to the amygdala is the worst possible thing we can do. Okay, well, unless a saber-toothed tiger did actually make it to the back of your Prius. But for the most part, listening to our primal programming robs us of the life that we're meant to have. Sadly, most people won't find this out till it's too late. It's not until they're lying on their deathbed that most people will have this gnawing feeling of regret. They'll feel robbed, cheated. How do I know? I felt it. 16 years ago, I was running one of the hottest technology companies in the USA, and I was so full of fear and anxiety that I had to drink 6 or 8 beers every day just to keep the anxiety wolves at bay. I had a constant fire hose of cortisol, the stress hormone, coursing through my body, and I couldn't shut it off. Not surprisingly, this combination of cortisol, anxiety, and drinking nearly ended in a lifestyle that created disaster. I got very sick. I went to my local doc, and he said he didn't know what it was after the tests he did, but I had no immune system, and he couldn't figure out why. He wanted me to go up to Johns Hopkins. So I sent my 1-year-old daughter to her grandparents' house. And my wife and I went up to Hopkins, where I endured a battery of tests and evaluations that culminated in this nightmare scenario of Dr. McHale coming in and telling me the leukemia was very rare. 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 I should get my affairs in order and say my goodbyes. My wife was 6 months pregnant, and she went into shock. I know, right? How do you think I felt? That's when regret hit me like a baseball bat to the stomach. I looked back on my life, and I saw made-up excuses, running from fear, trying to avoid shame, embarrassment, most of all, to avoid flying. For 35 years, I lived alone in my cave with my shame. I ran from fear, and now I'd never find my Garden of Eden. The treatment was dangerous, and the surgery was risky. But even amidst all that drama, my thoughts shifted from myself to my daughter, Shannon. Would the memories she have of her father be a guy who was too afraid to get on a plane and take her to Disney? She deserved better. Can you remember doing something that was really scary? Riding a roller coaster? Saying a toast at a wedding? How'd you feel right before that? Right before the moment when fear is at its strongest? Now, can you remember being so scared you didn't do something? You backed away, you defaulted to your defense and ran to the cave. Did you feel shame or regret? See, when you did that brave thing, like the roller coaster, you activated a part of your brain that gave you a little squirt. The brain's reward center gave you a little squirt of enzymatic ecstasy, and you felt great, high-fiving on top of the world. You literally flipped a switch on your brain. Nerd alert. The area you changed and activated is called the SGACC, the subgenial anterior cingulate cortex. That's your courage center. You turned it on. You activated that. Now, the courage center, the SGACC, is much weaker than the amygdala. But we can reprogram it. You can make it stronger. In this amazing research study, Israeli researchers found people who were afraid of snakes. And they put them in a functional MRI machine, one of these white-like coffins where you can monitor brain activity. And at the other end of it, on a track, on a little wagon, was a snake. And inside the fMRI machine, they had a button that could move it further or closer to them. And they were told, bring that serpent as close to your face as possible. And a few brave souls actually did that. And something incredible happened. The amygdala shut off, and the SGACC lit up like a Christmas tree. They activated their courage center. And they activated it by choice. Now, a lot of you have probably seen just the opposite at work lately. Ineffective leaders choose fear. They default to their defense. And they scurry back to their cave because they don't have the answers and they don't want to look bad. Effective leaders do just the opposite. They get empathetic, they get inquisitive. Great leaders replace judgment with curiosity. But fear not, we can all change. Here's the spoiler alert. I lived. My first stop out of Hopkins was the Leesburg Airport. I was going to take flying lessons. The first lesson, I peed 4 times before we even got out to the plane. I was so scared. But I was pretending that I was doing it, saving my daughter's life, and I kept thinking to her. The second lesson was even worse because we went out over the mountains and hit some turbulence, and I actually pooped myself, just a little bit. But then something incredible happened. I started to make those connections to the Courage Center. And as I did, learning got faster. I got smarter. I was learning better than I had before. It was like everything was in super saturation, high definition. I was using that fear response that prepped my body for fight or flight to become a better pilot, and then an absolute miracle happened. I got to the other side of my fear, and I fell in love with flying. My greatest fear became my greatest passion. I got my private license, my instrument license, my commercial license. I got a seaplane rating, but that's not all. Today, I actually fly a stunt plane in aerobatics competitions, doing exactly what would have petrified me 16 years ago. Courage had an amazing halo effect on the rest of my life. My entire relationships and my business all took off because of courage. So I bet you're wondering how I went from Diary of a Wimpy Kid to Captain Courageous. So was I. So I asked a neuroscientist. He taught me all about the amygdala, and he introduced me to a bunch of other researchers. This started a 6-year journey to research with 36 of the world's best neuroscientists all the material for my new book. I wanted everyone to have this information, to have your own handbook. But the first step in using this information is having the belief you can change your mind. Neuroplasticity proves that this is true. If you want to become creative, you can at any age. If you want to become more brave, you can at any age. But bravery requires, first and foremost, when you feel those tells, when you feel those butterflies, that don't default back to your cave. Stop and recognize them, and then breathe. That's the first line of reprogramming. Breathe in to a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 4. Breathe out to a count of 4. That's called a 4x4. Simply doing that breathing for a few minutes every morning when you wake up will literally change the cellular structure of your brain in the first 3 or 4 days. So then when you get in a point of stress or high anxiety and you fall back to what you've been practicing on, do a few of those 4x4s, you send a very powerful signal to your brain that you're not under threat. Nerd alert. Neuroscientists call this bottoms-up information. If you are under threat, your brain reasons, your heart rate would be beating fast. Since you're breathing steady and slow, it must be safe. There's an even easier way to act with courage. Smile. No matter how fake it is. Researchers at Emory University had people watch horror movies with a chopstick clamped in their teeth so they could flex the 42 muscles in their face used for smiling. And they found something absolutely incredible. Just by flexing the smile muscles, they reduced cortisol by 80%. That old adage, grin and bear it, that's now a scientific maxim. So breathing and smiling are the first 2 lines of code to reprogram that 2-million-year-old piece of software. But to really change your life, you have to look for decisions that make you uncomfortable. See, there's only 2 ways to make choices in life: out of fear or out of opportunity. When you choose opportunity, that's where happiness, growth, fulfillment lies. That's your Garden of Eden. Lastly, to act brave, do something for someone you love. Researchers here at Georgetown University found that when you have an altruistic motivation, like my flying lessons for my daughter, then it's easier to connect to that courage center, and the rewards your brain produces, those little squirts of happy enzymes, get even stronger. So breathing, smiling, and acting for someone you love, those are the 3 critical lines of programming that anyone can use to change their life. When I broke free from that cold embrace of death, I realized the essence of life is uncertainty. When I felt myself being pulled back to the cave, come back, I turned the other way. When I saw myself judging someone, I said, be curious. Act courageous. You'll feel courageous. Get a little shot of that happy enzyme. Don't settle. Anyone can reprogram their brain for an amazing life. When you step out into that jungle, I guarantee you'll find your Eden. And the adventure, the trek, won't feel like fear. It'll feel like excitement and love. Thank you very much.